Hi everyone, it's Sarah. Welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to make these cute snowmen. Now you can use these as a washcloth, as a hot pad, a doily, or a decoration, whatever you want to use them for. I do recommend that if you're going to use them for a hot pad or going to put something right off the stove or out of the oven on top of these, that you make it out of cotton yarn, because acrylic yarn has a tendency to get hot and burn and melt if you put something extremely hot on them. Also, keep them away from your open flame. I made these both out of acrylic yarns, and I'm going to be using those as decorative washcloths as well as decorations. Now, I really love them. They're super sweet and super easy, and you can add different types of personalities by where you put the eyes and the smile. This one's pretty straight on with the pom-pom at the top. This one, I made it a little bit sideways, so it kind of looks a little bit ornery. I love them both, and I think you're really going to enjoy making this super quick and super easy pattern, and it's going to brighten up your holiday celebrations. Now you can find this free crochet pattern on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make one of these silly snowmen, you're going to need some yarn, of course. I'm going to be using regular old white Red Heart Super Saver acrylic medium weight number 4 yarns for the white portion of my snowman. I'm going to be using this blue, and this is like a light powder blue. I do not have the wrapper anymore, so I don't know exactly what the name is called, but it is Vanna's Choice that I got last year on clearance, which was lots of fun. It is also an acrylic medium number 4 yarn. Like I said, you can use acrylic, cotton, or the blends. You're going to need to make sure that they're medium weight number 4 yarns. You're also going to need a small amount of black for the little charcoal eyes and the smile, and then a small amount of orange for the nose. You're going to need about 2 ounces of your main color white and about 1 ounce of your blue for your trim and pom-pom. So it doesn't really take very much yarn. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook, and it's a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need your scissors, and you'll need a needle to weave in the ends and to add on your pieces. One thing to remember, we are going to be making a little pom-pom, so you need a good sharp pair of scissors to trim that pom-pom. We're going to be starting with our main color, which is our white for our snowman. We'll be doing circles, moving all the way around, then we'll join in our trim and pom-pom color. So I'll be starting with white and then finishing up with the blue. We're going to start with our slip knot. We're going to chain 5. We're going to join this into a circle, so we'll take our tail of yarn, put it over our hook, and pull it through. Snug that down and add that little stay knot. All right, now we're going to put our hook in, pull up a loop, and chain 3. This chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet. And now we're going to stitch 9 more, so we'll have a total of 10. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2 loops. That's our double crochet. All right, so I need a total of 10 double crochets, counting my beginning chain 3. Let's see how many I've done so far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so I need one more. And you'll notice that as I stitched over this tail of yarn. And that's because we're going to need it. We're going to join to the top of our chain 3 with a slip stitch, and we're going to chain 3. All right, we're going to turn this over, and we're going to pull that yarn, and that's going to close that hole. Sometimes you get a big hole, sometimes you get a little hole, and sometimes you don't get a hole at all. But we have to weave this in anyway, so we're going to close that up and go ahead and weave that in by going around those stitches, and then we'll turn and go back the way we came, and that's going to keep that from coming undone. Now remember, it's going to get a lot of use, so we want to make sure we've got that weaved in nice and tight. So now we have 10 double crochets. We joined with the slip stitch and chained 3. For row 2, we're going to place 2 double crochets in each of the double crochets around. Our chain 3 counted as our first, so we're going to put a double crochet right in that same stitch as our chain 3. And then we're going to place 2 double crochets in each of those 10 double crochets. One and 2. So I'm just going to move around this circle, stitching 2 double crochets in each of those 10 double crochets around, and then I'll join back to the top of my chain 3. I've stitched 2 double crochets in each of those 10 double crochets around, so I have 20 double crochets. We're going to join to the chain 3 with a slip stitch, and this time we're going to chain 4. This chain 4 counts as a double crochet, chain 1. And what we're going to do for row 3 is we're going to place a double crochet, chain 1 in each of the stitches around. So we'll go to the next double crochet and stitch double crochet, chain 1. We'll go to the next and stitch double crochet, chain 1. And we'll repeat this all the way around for row 3. 1 double crochet, chain 1 in each of the double crochets around. And we'll repeat this all the way around and join back to the chain 3 of that first chain 4. So double crochet, chain 1 in each of those 20 double crochets. I've stitched double crochet, chain 1 in each of those 20 double crochets, so we'll have 20 sets of double crochet, chain 1. We're going to join to the third chain of that beginning chain 4 with a slip stitch and chain 3. Now, on this row, we're going to do a solid row of double crochet. So our chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in that same stitch, right in the top of that chain 3. Then we're going to stitch a double crochet in the chain 1 space. Now this brings us to our next double crochet. And the way the repeat is going to work is we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the double crochet. So there's 1 and 2. And then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in the chain 1 space. And repeat. 2 double crochets in the double crochet. 1, 2, and then 1 double crochet in the chain 1 space. And again, we're going to repeat this, working all the way around till we get back to our chain 3. 2 double crochets in the top of that double crochet, and 1 double crochet in the chain 1 space. And this is going to give us a nice solid row of double crochets. And we'll repeat that 2 and 1, working all the way around, and join back to our chain 3. I've completed this row, stitching 2 double crochets in each double crochet and 1 double crochet in the chain 1 spaces. We're going to join to the chain 3, and then we're going to chain 5. For row 4, you should have 60 double crochet stitches. Alright, now this chain 5 counts as a double crochet chain 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to skip the next double crochet and stitch a double crochet in the next stitch. Then we're going to chain 2. We're going to skip 1 double crochet and stitch a double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 2. Skip 1 and stitch a double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 2, skip 1 and stitch a double crochet in the next stitch. Keep sliding off my hook there. And that's the way that row 5 will work. Double crochet, chain 2, skip 1. Double crochet, chain 2, skip 1. And we'll repeat this all the way around. And then we'll join back to the third chain of those beginning 5 chains. So, skip 1, double crochet, chain 2. Skip 1, double crochet, chain 2, working all the way around, and join to our chain 3. I've completed that row of double crochet, chain 2, skip 1, and repeat all the way around. Here's my last double crochet, chain 2, skip the last stitch, and we're going to join 1, 2, 3 to the third chain of that initial chain 5 because it counted as a double crochet, chain 2, and we're going to chain 3. And this chain 3 also counts as a double crochet. You may notice on this row of row 5 that it might be just a little bit ripply. Don't worry. When we do this next row, it'll flatten right out for you, okay? Alright, so what we're going to do is our chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet. And what we're going to do is stitch 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space. So 1 and 2. We'll stitch 1 double crochet in the double crochet. Then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space. 1 and 2. And as you stitch this row, you will notice that it will flatten out. So 1 double crochet in the double crochet, and 2 double crochets in that chain 2 space. And we'll continue to repeat 1 double crochet in the double crochet and 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, working all the way around, and join back to our chain 3. And like I said, you're going to notice, and you can already see on this one, that it's going to flatten that out and open up those holes, and it's going to look super cute. I've completed row 6, stitching 1 double crochet in the double crochet and 2 double crochets in each of the chain 2 spaces. And for row 6, you're going to need to have 90 double crochets. This was our last row of the white. We're going to join to the chain 3, with a slip stitch, and we're going to cut our yarn. And now we're going to bring in our trim color. On the other two, I used red and green, and on this one, I'm going to use blue. So we're going to bring in our blue. That out of the way there. And chain one. Now we'll need to snug that down and weave those in later. And what we're going to do for row 7 is we're just going to place one single crochet in each of the double crochets around. So we'll go right in that first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. That's our single crochet. One single crochet in each of the stitches, working all the way around the outside of our snowman. And this also will help if you're still having a little issue with a little bit of curling. You might have stitched a little too loose and so it's curling up on you like rippling. Don't worry, this row will also help with flattening that out. And when you get to the end of making your snowman and you still feel like it's a little bit ripply, you can always block it. And I'll talk about that when we get to the end. So we're stitching one single crochet in each of the double crochets, working all the way around, and then we'll join back to our first single crochet. I've completed this row stitching all the way around. You should have 90 single crochets. We're going to join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch, chain one, and we're going to do exactly for row 8 what we did for row 7. We're going to stitch one single crochet in each of the single crochets around. And this will give us a nice sturdy edge on our snowman. One single crochet in each of those single crochets around. We'll work all the way around and then we'll join back to our single crochet. I've completed that second row of single crochets, and you should notice by now that it's laying nice and flat. I joined to my first single crochet, and now we're going to chain 12. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this is just going to make that loop so that if we want to hang it up, we can. We're going to put it right in and stitch a slip stitch in that same single crochet and tie off. Alright, now I'm going to pull that string to the back through that loop so that it lays nice and flat, and then we can take our needle and weave that in. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to add the pom-pom, since we're already working with our blue yarn. Now I make the pom-pom the same color as the trim of the snowman so that it kind of looks like his hat. If you want to make his pom-pom a different color, you certainly can. Alright, so here is my snowman. He needs a pom-pom, eyes, nose, and smile. To make the pom-pom, the first thing you need to do is cut a piece of yarn about 10 or 12 inches long. Then we're going to take the yarn and we're going to wrap it around our fingers. I like to use the 3, and we're going to do that about 20 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Alright, put my finger through there, clip that yarn, and then I'm going to take my yarn and push it right through the center of those loops of yarn. Alright, then we're going to tie nice and tightly. So I'm going to do 1, make sure it's nice and snug, I'll tie another knot. That's 2. And then I'll tie one more knot. 3. Now we're going to take those nice sharp scissors and we're going to clip our pom-pom. And I just push my hand forward and I clip off all those extra loops right off the end there. And then I fluff it out. Now, if I think that's too long, too short, or whatever, I may adjust. But I think these are a little bit long for this particular project, so I'm going to cut just a little bit more off. And if you want your pom-pom a little bit fuller, you can do more loops. If you don't, you do less. I like them a little bit less. I don't want them to be real thick. All right, so I'm looking at it. I see a couple of strays over here. Clip those off. All right, so now I'm just going to take my hot pad here. I'm going to move those out of the way. And I'll give you a little hint about how to clean up after that. We're going to take our hook and we're going to go right in the stitch between, right at the bottom of where the loop is, and pull one of those strings to the back. Then we'll grab that other string and we'll go next to it on the other side of that loop and pull that string to the back. Then we'll pull both of those strings. The pom-pom is right underneath the loop. We'll come to the back and we're going to tie 3 knots. We're going to tie a regular knot and a regular knot, and then we're going to do what I call a loop over knot. I know it has a name, but I don't know what it's called. But I grab both of my strands of yarn and I just make a loop over my thumb and pull those strands of yarn through that loop, and then I push that loop down as close as I can to where I'm working, which is the back of our hot pad, and I clip that. Now, if you're worried about that knot coming undone, as well as the knot that's on your pom-pom, you can use a little bit of fray check or fabric glue on there. I don't recommend that you use hot glue on something that could possibly warm up. I'm just not a big fan of hot glue on acrylic or cotton yarns. It's just a preference, but you do what works best for you. All right, let's make a nose. We're going to use orange yarn. We're going to make our slip knot and chain 7. All right, so now we're going to turn and we're going to place a single crochet in the second and third chain. Then we're going to place a half double crochet in the next 2. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3. Then we're going to place a double crochet in each of the last 2. And this gives us our carrot nose shape. All right, so there's our nose. We're going to cut our yarn, but we're going to leave ourselves about 12 to 18 inches because we're going to need to sew that onto our snowman. We're going to tie off. And before we do that, we're going to go ahead and thread that beginning tail of yarn onto our needle and just go ahead and weave that into the back. All right, now that's all taken care of. Now we can grab our snowman and we can place our nose. Now, it's up to you which direction you want your nose to be. It can be this way or this way, you know, whatever direction, it doesn't matter. It's your snowman and you can decide. This one, I think I'm going to have it go this way. And so what I do is I try to center it across the center of those 2 rows, row 1 and 2. And you can pin this in place if you would like. I never do. I just go in and start stitching. And I hold it with my thumb. And we're just going to stitch in and out. This way we can kind of place it with our thumb, and we're going to go in and out these stitches. Making sure we get all the way to the end of that nose. And I go like that, make a stitch, and then I go right in the end of that nose to try to make it look like a carrot. And I'll go right down in there and come up here. And then I'll just continue working around the nose, going in and out. And you'll notice I have a lot of yarn left, and so I'm just going to continue to go back and forth around the nose. We want it to stay put. And I'll just continue stitching onto the nose until I run out of my yarn. I want to make sure I get it in the corners so that it has a nice crisp look. Got a little bit left here, so I'll go ahead and go back over. I'm kind of getting those out of the way there. And I'll just go back over stitches here just to make sure it's going to stay put. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn it over. We want to make sure when we weave it in, we weave in so that it's behind the nose so our stitches don't show through to the front where we don't want them. And remember, the key to getting it to stay put is to go through stitches and through the fibers of the yarn. Give that a nice snug pull. Alrighty, now let's turn it over. There's my nose. Now I already have one of the eyes sewn on. And black yarn is really difficult to see when we're filming. And so I'm going to show you with the blue yarn how to make them. And then I already have another one made, and I'll show you how to sew it in place. Alright, so they're really simple. You just take your black yarn, even though I'm using blue for the demonstration, and make your slip knot, chain 2. And then we're going to place 5 single crochets in the second chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, we'll join to our first single crochet, and then you'll cut your yarn, leaving a long tail so you can sew it in place. All right, now we're going to tie, oops, get back in there. We're going to tie that off, and then we'll take this other tail where we started and make sure that we close up any hole that's in the center. And like I said at the beginning, you're going to have to weave it in anyway, so you might as well make it look nice and neat. Alright, so you'll weave it in the back like that. You'll cut off that tail of yarn. Switching to the black now, you'll take that long tail of yarn and thread it right onto your needle. And then you'll place your eye. Now, like I said, I already have one on here, so I'm going to place the other one. I want them to be a little bit kind of crooked. I don't know, I could put it way over here if I wanted to. I kind of like it. I don't know, maybe I'll put it here. I can never decide. I like to make them all look different. Now, the main thing in putting the eyes on is you want to put them on this row where the solid row of double crochet is, as you don't have anything to sew on these other rows, and it won't stay on. So we're just going to stitch around that eye. Just going around the edges until you run out of yarn. There we go. I've got a little bump there, so I want to make sure that I get that in. I think that's where I joined. So there's the second eye. We'll go to the back and weave that in. And I always go through it a couple more times through the back just to make sure it's going to stay put. Alright, so now our silly snowman looks a little bit like a duck, doesn't it? We need to give it a smile so it looks like a snowman. So we'll take another piece of, whoops, there we go, another piece of black yarn, about 18 inches or so. We'll thread that onto our needle. And you're going to sew your smile on this same row. And a lot of times I'll have you do it like on the edge of a row so you'll have a line to follow. But for this particular project, I want you to sew like right down the center of this row of double crochet. All right, so I'm going to line up the side of my mouth and I'm going to go through some stitches. Because if you go through the holes, you're going to lose your stitches in those holes. And this is just a line at the end of the mouth. I'm going to leave a little bit back here so I can weave that in when I'm done. I'm going to come up in the center. And now I'm just going to follow these stitches about every 2 or 3 stitches down the center of my row there so I can get a nice smile. And this is a little tricky. You got to be careful not to pull too hard or it puckers, but you also don't want to leave it so that it gapes or drapes a little. It's just kind of up to you. And then you want to decide how far around you want your silly smile to go. I'm going to go a little farther so you can have a little bit of a silly smile. All right, so I'm just making a half smile. All right, so now I'm going to go back through because I want to double stitch this so that I have 2 rows of stitches. So I'm going to go right back over the stitches that I just made so that it's 2 thicknesses. So I'll just follow this line back. And you don't have to do 2 thicknesses if you don't want to, or you can grab a thicker yarn and make it with thicker yarn. And the truth is you can do it pink or red or whatever that you want to. I just stuck with black so it would match the eyes. Remember, I like it when you use your creative juices and come up with new colors and styles for my patterns. I love it when you do that. All right, so the smile so the smile is all double stitched. I'm going to turn it over and we'll just weave those ends in real quick. And this is where you have to be a little bit careful because you don't want that black thread to show through. So make sure you stay in the back portion of those stitches. If your snowman is not laying as flat as you would like it to do, pin it to a blocking board, spritz it with just a little bit of water. You don't have to get it very wet, just dampen it, and pin it, make sure it's pinned nice and tightly, and just let it sit overnight. It is a good idea to block it if you're going to give it as a gift, so it's nice and crisp. So here are the 3 silly snowman pot holders, washcloths, doilies, decorations, or whatever you want to use them for. This is the one we did today. I spaced the eyes out a little more so he looks a little more cheerful. This one, his nose is poking up so he looks a little ornery, and this one just looks plain silly. I love all 3 of them, and I hope you will too.